Welcome to this video. We've been speaking quite a bit about Ham and Japheth. We haven't spoken much about the Shemites. So I thought we could introduce one of the sons of Shem in this video with Elam. Let's get into this video. The Wikipedia entry for Elam doesn't help us with trying to learn about the ancient Elamites and also with our question, who could the Elamites be today? It tells us about the territory and also the history. The page worldhistory.org is a little bit more interesting. It tells us the Bible claims the region is named for Elam, son of Shem, son of Noah, but this has no support outside of the biblical narrative. So we'll come back to that. It says their language corresponds to no others and has yet to be deciphered. So their early history comes from Mesopotamian sources. So that's very interesting. So I wonder what information we still don't know that could be very helpful if they haven't been able to decipher the Elamite. Okay, we'll read this part here as well. The origin of the Elamites is considered as mysterious as their language. So very mysterious, but they were most likely the indigenous people of the Iranian plateau. So we don't have a lot to go on in terms of these pages, what's out there on, or what's accepted by the academic world for the Elamites. But what about the Bible, which is saying that Elam was a real person, so a son of Shem, a son of Noah? So we'll just go to Genesis 10 to see Elam, son of Shem. But this is important now because the Bible gives us the brothers of Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. So now we're already getting more information, because if you have limited knowledge on Elam or information, you could also study the brothers and they could help point to Elam or help with the understanding of Elam. So the Bible is already showing itself to be very important or useful for the study of the ancient history. And if we consider the book of Jubilees, which is a part of the Apocrypha, but it has very interesting information to try help us on our mini study or mini quest on this video for Elam. It speaks about the subdivision of the three portions amongst the grandchildren. So in the previous chapter, it spoke about the lots that fell for the three sons of Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Now they're subdividing that amongst their sons, which will be the grandchildren of Noah, according to the book of Jubilees. Let's read the portion that came for Elam. The first portion came forth for Elam and his sons, to the east of the river Tigris, till it approacheth the east, the whole land of India, and on the Red Sea on its coast, and the waters of Dedan, and all the mountains of Mebri and Elah, and all the land of Susan, and all that is on the side of Parnak, to the Red Sea, and the river Tina. So we have a lot of information now about the territory for Elam and his sons, according to this source. The point that really stands out to me is where it says the whole land of India, because that could be a sizable territory, but it could also be an important puzzle piece for trying to understand Elam, because should we not be thinking India for Elam and also the Indian people? And when we have that train of thoughts, then we can come across some interesting things for Elam, because there are scholars that have a hypothesis and they've created an Elamo, I don't know how you pronounce that, Elamo-Dravidian language family. So Elamo standing for the Elamite language of ancient Elam. So this is a very interesting connection, because now we have a people, the Dravidians. The Dravidian peoples. We also now have a connection to the modern day country of India. and they say there are around 250 million native speakers of the Dravidian languages. So in terms of the distribution for these languages, we would say predominantly the southern region of India. So this is the modern day country of India. We also see the Brahui, which is in Pakistan. So that seems to be a bit disconnected from the main distribution for these Dravidian languages. So does that actually work if we just think about that again? So the Book of Jubilees saying that the whole land of India fell for Elam and his sons. So now we're thinking about India and Elam. And we do have scholars that are thinking about a Elamo-Dravidian language family. So we have a connection to a people, the Dravidians, who are inhabiting southern India, also Sri Lanka and Pakistan. So that actually does seem to work for the Elamites. So have you heard anything about this? Do you know about this connection, about the Dravidians with the Elamites? Do you, what do you think about it? Do you have anything you'd like to share in the comment section? We may actually need help from scholars that really understand their history and these regions and these languages. And it might actually be local knowledge that could really help us to support this, because there's not a lot of information out there in the academic world that's accepted. Because if we think about this, we have these scholars making this link with Dravidian to the Elamites, but on this page it says, if we just find that part again, their language corresponds to no others and is yet to be deciphered. So are most of the scholars and the academic world, if we say the majority, ignoring these potential ideas or these hypotheses with the Dravidian language family? Would that actually help with trying to decipher the Elamites? So that's very interesting, but there's more, because we do have depictions of the Elamites. So we're told that this could actually be, if you want to say soldiers or archers, ancient Elamites. So this could be something else to think about. Just trying to think how to phrase it. So, where in the world would you think you could be if you came across soldiers that looked like this? So that's interesting for the Elamites, because then you would think about the brothers and you'd be thinking about Shem. So it's interesting that when we look at the academic world, they're saying it's very mysterious and we don't really know who the ancient Elamites were. It's very much a mystery, and they have a very suggestive idea saying that they could be the indigenous people, which doesn't really help you understand the ancient Elamites or who they could be today. But when you think about the Bible and also the works of the Apocrypha, we do get some puzzle pieces that lead us to, I'm just going to say something that's potential, because is said to be an hypothesis, but a connection to a people which does seem to make sense with what the Book of Jubilees is saying. But those that have been watching the channel for quite a while will know that there's more to this, that maybe we shouldn't just go straight to the modern day country of India when we see this description for Elam. That's going to be the next part. Also very interesting for trying to understand Elam and ancient Elam. This could be important for us to be aware of, the so-called confusion between India and Ethiopia, the eastern and southern edges of the inhabited world from the Greco-Roman perspective. This source speaks about Eastern Ethiopians and Western Ethiopians that the Greeks described when they saw people in different regions. I want to go down to the part that I've highlighted. It speaks about parts of East Africa being called India. Certain areas of East Africa were called India. We'll look at a few interesting examples for this confusion. We have Himyarite ambassadors being described as Indian. Let me show you this region. So this is the region for the Himyarite kingdom at its height in 525 AD. And we'll mention this region again in another example. It speaks about an Aksumite king being described as Indian. If we look at the kingdom of Aksum, if we say both sides of the Red Sea, encompassing the countries Ethiopia, Yemen, Eritrea, Sudan. So a king from this region being described as Indian. And we have another example of this on the page for Yemen. It says Latin and Greek writers referred to ancient Yemen as India. And if we go to a different source, speaking along the same lines, a confusion of Indias, Asian India and African India in the Byzantine sources. The Byzantine was the Eastern Roman Empire. This is very interesting and maybe important, this one as well, because it says, we're reading here with Procopius, it says, connecting India with Ethiopia when he states that the Nile River flowing out of India into Egypt divides that land into two parts as far as the sea. So now we're seeing this connection again with Ethiopia and India. But I think this could be very important to consider that Ethiopia is being called India in this Greco-Roman perspective. We might read this in our time. If we go to a map, we would be saying that the Nile River is flowing from Ethiopia into Egypt, but this source saying that the river is flowing from India into Egypt. This could be very important for not only this video thinking about Elam, but how we view the ancient past. If we go back to the source again, where we read the whole land of India for Elam and his sons, how do we know where we should be looking? We've already seen this very interesting connection with the Dravidians, the Dravidian peoples, and they are inhabiting largely the modern day country of India. So this is definitely something that we should consider, and it's a very interesting connection because of the hypothesis that we mentioned, the Elamo-Dravidian language family. So I'm not saying that we should discount this, but when the Book of Jubilees says the whole land of India, should our first consideration actually be Ethiopia and the Yemen, this region? And that makes a big difference for our perspective when we think about the Elamites and Elam, because it's not just about the kingdom of Elam, it will also be about the other surrounding kingdoms or empires. There's lots of implications for this if we can use this account from the Book of Jubilees and it's accurate. And if we remember how the page of the worldhistory.org speaks about Elam, about this confusion, well no, sorry, it said mysterious, that it was very mysterious, but they say that they were most likely the indigenous people of the Iranian plateau. So most likely is a very uncertain way of saying this. Then you start to wonder about the Elamites. Would they look similar to the people who are in this region today? Because you don't really know who these indigenous people were, the original people. But when we see a picture of what the Elamites may have looked like, then we're starting to think something different, because the majority of the people in the Iranian plateau of today don't really have this appearance. So maybe we're not looking in the right place for the Elamites. So it's very interesting what the Bible tells us and the book of Jubilees, that we should be looking towards India, which led us to the Dravidians, which is very interesting. But now we have these other sources, the Greco-Roman perspective, that we should also be thinking about Ethiopia for India, but for Elam and his descendants. So this could be very important for us to consider for our perspective, and what implications are there going to be for the surrounding kingdoms of Elam and the history with the empires. That's what we will speak about in the next part. We've used this source before, the Kushite origins of Sumer and Elam by Runoko Rashidi, but now that we've laid a bit of a foundation, we can go further with the source than we've done in the past. We've already introduced Elam in this video, but I would like to just think a bit about Sumer and the Sumerians and read a few things out. So we see here that they connect ancient Sumer with the biblical land of Shinar. So there is scholarship which connects these two names for Sumer and Shinar. We're going to come back to the land of Shinar and Nimrod, but I first want to just speak about the ancient city of Sumer and the Sumerians. It says, Sumer appears to be the first major high culture of Western Asia. She bequeathed to her successor states a tradition of great achievement. Her many contributions to civilization are well known. So when we start to read these things, we could get taken back into the contest and if we say that debate that we've been in about who's going to take credit, because now we see there's achievements, there is high culture, and in this world that we're in, there's going to be this wanting to take the credit, not wanting the credit to go to somebody else. So we're going to see that now. We're going to just mention this quickly because it says the Sumerians called themselves the black-headed people, and they must have been only one of the many Nilotic Kushite colonies established in early Asia. So it's saying that the Sumerians were Kushites, and that's supported by the fact that the Sumerians called themselves the black-headed people. So if we were, let's say, Afrocentric scholars, and that's what we were looking for, was this kind of information, we could go back and say that it's due to the Kushites that we have this major high culture of Western Asia and this great achievement that's being passed on to successor states and maybe other regions as well. But if we want to be fair and see what is the information saying, if we go to the page on Sumer on Wikipedia, it says that the Sumerians called their land Kengir, the country of the noble lords. So now this is starting to sound familiar. If you've been following our videos and been going through the study with us, we see now the mention of the noble lords. But it does also on the page make mention that the Sumerians called themselves the black-headed ones, or the black-headed people. But if we go to some depictions that were given for the Sumerians, this is where it's interesting, because this is a depiction of a war scene. So these are Sumerian warriors. But when we look at this, it doesn't seem to match what we first read about the black-headed people. for the Sumerians. And I want to show you another image. This is an image of the king of Ur. So Ur, one of the Sumerian city-states. So what does this mean in terms of the Sumerians? Just wanted to show you this, that there seems to be, well, it's difficult to know how to say, where depending on what your perspective is, what you believe, or maybe what you're hoping to find, maybe you're looking for certain information, you may come across this source and see this part and then say, that's just what I was looking for. But what about these images? Then do you ignore these images because that doesn't actually fit? But then you can also have the reverse, where you may have certain scholars that are looking for, let's say, looking for the Aryans, because we can read about this high culture of the Sumerian civilization. So Aryan scholars might want to claim the Sumerian civilization as being an Aryan civilization. And then if you see these images, that might fit for what they want to see. But then how do you ignore the Sumerians calling themselves the black-headed people? So it is difficult, and that's what I was trying to say about trying not to get drawn in, trying to keep a steady mind, not letting emotion take over, so you can really see the information, look at what it's saying, to try come to a decision. If you make a decision about what is the truth to, let's say, the past for the Sumerians and the Sumer, which is actually fair and what is right, not just maybe what you want to see. But let's come back now to the top here. This is very important for what we're going to speak about. It says, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, in the land of Shinar. So this is important now. This is coming from the Bible, and it could be very important that the Bible is actually going into this detail to tell us about Nimrod, because it's going to be important for the later story that we told with the Tower of Babel. So it's important that we get this information to learn about Nimrod and how he was very important in this period of time and what was taking place. But notice it says the land of Shinar, which has been connected with Sumer. So we can see how it makes sense that with Nimrod being a son of Cush, how the Cushites are very strongly connected to Sumer. That's why this is speaking about the Cushite origins. But I'd like to read something now that's going to be connected to our previous videos. This is going to be quite important. Okay, so it says, in addition to the biblical reference to Nimrod as a son of Cush, the mighty hunter has been identified with Osiris of the Nile Valley. So that's why we quickly went to that page by mistake. We are going to use this page that we went to. So Osiris, an Egyptian deity worshipped by the Egyptians. But this is very important what it's saying, that Osiris could be Nimrod. That's what it's saying in the source. Diodorus Siculus of Sicily, in the section of his work devoted to Cush, reported that Osiris was the leader of the Cushite colony that settled in Egypt. So this is important for what we were speaking about in our previous videos. I alluded to this. Let me show you the video. Who could the Greek god Zeus be in the Bible? I was saying about, did the family of Cush rule over Egypt in the most ancient of times? And is that what the Bible is telling us? So now we're actually really going into this now, because this is a very interesting account or source speaking about Nimrod as Osiris and Osiris leading a Kushite colony that's settling in Egypt. So it would be Nimrod, we could maybe say, ruling over Egypt as Osiris. So that would be the Kushite influence over Egypt that we were asking about. But then we can go further with this because we've learned more in this mythology. I want to go to the page Dionysus, Osiris. Now this is going to make sense if you watch this video. Who could the Greek god Zeus be in the Bible? This should really make sense because we notice how there's a connection between Osiris and Dionysus. It says these two deities have been identified with each other as early as the 5th century BC, as recounted in the histories of Herodotus. And then it's also important how it speaks about the Ptolemies, the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt, claiming descent from Dionysus. We were speaking about Alexander in our videos, but it's a similar genealogy because the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt is a follow-on from this Macedonian empire of Alexander the Great that broke up. But we'll see the significance now because if we go to the page on Dionysus, we see that they do connect Dionysus with Osiris, which we've read as an equivalent. But Dionysus was a son of Zeus. So if you have watched that video, that should make sense. If you haven't watched that video, I'll have to just explain quickly that we put forward the theory was the Greek god Zeus, the biblical Cush. Now we can see that again in a different way. So if we just go through that again, we see that Dionysus, who is a son of Zeus in this mythology, is being connected with Osiris. But the source that we're using saying that Nimrod is the same as Osiris. So Nimrod is the same as Osiris, but then it would also be the same as Dionysus. But Dionysus is given as a son of Zeus. But the Bible is telling us that Nimrod is the son of Cush. So if you follow that, and let's say that all that is correct, it does show that the Greek god Zeus could have been the biblical Cush. So it's a very important source because it does correlate with what we've been learning, also with the work of Sir Isaac Newton. It does make sense, but now we're introducing Nimrod, which we haven't actually introduced before. But I would just like to also think now how we see Elam, the Kushite origins of Sumer and Elam. It's important to see that Elam is connected with Sumer and also with the Kushites. Let's read about this. This is also very important. It's going to be a bit of a recap for what we've done on the channel before, but we may be building and seeing it in a slightly different way. So if we read this part here about mighty Elam, I just want to find it. It says that Elam, sometimes it is called Kissia, sometimes Elam or Elamites. So it's saying that the territory of Elam, sometimes called Kissia, for the Kissians or the Kossaians, and the scholars connecting that with the Kushites. I just think this could be very important for our perspective, for the way we think about Elam and the Elamites. If we think about what we've done in this video already, just quickly recap that we thinking about these regions of East Africa being called India, but the book of Jubilees is saying that the whole land of India fell for Elam. But we know that we don't see Elam here on the map, but we do see Ethiopia. And in the Bible, Ethiopia has become synonymous with Cush. So we could say Ethiopia, or we could say Cush, if we think about the way the Bible uses these words. But what we could be learning is that the land of Elam could sometimes be called Kissia. So if this is connected with the Kushites, like it says here, could you not also say Ethiopia, that we could also see the territory of Elam being called Ethiopia. Do you think it's important that we consider this, that just because we don't see Elam on the map, it doesn't mean that this may not have been a part of the territory of ancient Elam. And that becomes important when we see how the land of Sumer, or the land of Shinar, is strongly connected with Elam. If we just go back to the top, there's a strong connection with the land of Sumer, or the land of Shinar, and also with the Cushites and Elam. So it seems to me that there must be a very close proximity between Elam and Sumer, and also a close proximity with the Elamites and the Cushites, that they're going to be, there could maybe have been intermarriage, but there could also be great rivalry. It speaks about the Cushites overrunning Elam, and that's why it may have been called Kissia. We have spoken about this on the channel. What I'll do is I'll put some interesting videos in the description below about what we've been covering with the land of Nimrod and the land of Shinar, and how it connects to what we are saying here in this video. I'm starting to try just go over the information again, maybe just bring it up, or sorry, bring it out again in a fresh way, maybe try and improve it. So that's very important. And I think the connection that we spoke about with in this video with the Greek god Zeus and the biblical Cush, this is another way of seeing it, but now we're seeing that it's involving Nimrod, which we haven't really gone too deeply in before. So that's also very important. The final thought is going to be something a bit different from the content of the video, but it is related to our playlist. We asked for some ideas for the idea for the title of this playlist. We did have a suggestion from Bethlehem Heat. What about How Can We Be Free? So that could be a bit of a play on our channel name, How Can I Be Free? So how can we be free? After all, how can we be free if we cannot speak and share freely? Even willing to be found wrong at times, but redirected as opposed to lost. So I thought this was a very profound idea for the playlist. If you would like to share what you think about it, does it work? If you have any other ideas. So we'll have this one for now. I don't want to change it too often. I also like it because the way I'm thinking about it is, how can we be free from errors and unfair bias and prejudice in our world? So you could also read it that way. And you could also maybe say, can we be free from what we just spoke about? But we will continue to try shine a light on this study, on our history, on the past. And I think we can see that with this video, that when looking at the Sumerians and ancient Sumer, we tried to present something that's fair. But if you have a bias, we can see how you can use information that you want to present something, but then is it the real true picture? And we need to try to be fair, and we need to really value the truth. And that could help with what the viewer is suggesting for our title. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to share any comments, I look forward to reading those. This video was kind of inspired by a comment. One of our viewers was asking about the Dravidians. I don't think we maybe went in the direction that the viewer was asking about, but we do look at the comments, and if you would like to ask something or suggest something, we can take a look. But until next time, thank you for those that like the videos. It makes a difference, and hopefully we'll see you in another video.